Sarah Chen wiped the grease from her hands and stared at the broken coolant pipe. Her back ached from crawling through maintenance tunnels for the past 12 hours. The space station Kepler-7 never stopped needing repairs. Something always broke, something always leaked, and someone always called her to fix it. She pressed her thumb against the door panel of her quarters. The metal door slid open with a soft hiss. Sarah stepped inside and froze. Something moved near her bed. Her heart jumped into her throat. The quarters were small, just a bed, a desk, and a tiny bathroom. There was nowhere to hide, but something was definitely there, pressed against the wall behind her pillow. Sarah's hand moved slowly toward the emergency comm button on the wall. Then she heard it. A small, frightened sound, almost like a whimper. She leaned closer. Two large eyes stared back at her from the shadows. They reflected the dim light like mirrors. The creature pressed itself harder against the wall, trying to become smaller. Sarah had seen many alien species during her 3 years on Kepler-7. The station hosted delegates and traders from across the galaxy. But she had never seen anything like this in her quarters before. The creature was small, maybe the size of a house cat from Earth. It had 6 legs, folded beneath a body covered in silver-gray fur. Its face was flat with a small nose and those huge, terrified eyes. A long tail wrapped tightly around its body. Blood matted the fur on its left side. Sarah forgot about the comm button. The creature was hurt. It was scared. It was just a baby. She sat down slowly on the floor, making herself smaller. "Hey there, little one," she said softly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The creature's ears flattened against its head. It made that whimpering sound again. Sarah knew the rules. No unauthorized biological entities in personal quarters. She should call station security immediately. But looking at those frightened eyes, she couldn't do it. She moved very slowly, reaching for the small medical kit under her desk. The creature watched every movement. Its tiny body trembled. "I'm going to help you," Sarah said, keeping her voice gentle. She had no idea if it understood her words, but tone was universal. Fear sounded like fear. Kindness sounded like kindness. She opened the kit and pulled out the basic supplies. Antiseptic, bandages, pain reliever. Nothing fancy, but it might help. Sarah scooted closer inch by inch. The creature pressed harder against the wall. There was nowhere left to go. It was trapped, and it knew it. "Please," Sarah whispered. "Let me see." She reached out slowly. The creature flinched but didn't run. Maybe it was too hurt. Maybe it was too tired. Sarah's fingers touched the soft fur near the wound. The creature went completely still. Sarah worked quickly but gently. The wound wasn't deep, just a scrape, probably from squeezing through some tight space. She cleaned it carefully, applied the antiseptic, and wrapped a small bandage around the tiny body. The creature's trembling started to slow. Its breathing became less rapid. When Sarah finished, she sat back. The creature stared at her. Then very slowly it uncurled slightly. Its tail loosened just a little. Sarah smiled. "There you go." "All better." Her communicator buzzed loudly. Both Sarah and the creature jumped. She pulled the device from her pocket and read the message scrolling across the screen. Station-wide alert. Missing juvenile, Vrelnari species. Diplomatic importance level critical. All personnel report any sightings immediately. Sarah's blood ran cold. Vrelnari. She knew that name. Everyone on the station knew that name. The Vrelnari were one of the most dangerous predator species in the known galaxy. Adults stood over 7 feet tall. Their strength could bend steel. Their tempers were legendary, and she was sitting 2 feet away from one of their babies. Sarah looked at the small creature again. It looked back at her with those big, trusting eyes. This was an apex predator? This tiny, scared thing? Another message appeared. Vrelnari juvenile's imprint on guardians. Separation causes extreme distress. Approach with extreme caution. The creature made a small sound. Not a whimper this time. Something softer. It scooted forward just an inch. Sarah should call security. She should call them right now. The parents were probably terrified. The station authorities were searching everywhere, but something stopped her. The cub was looking at her with complete trust. It had been hurt and afraid, and somehow it had found its way here. To her room. To her, why? The cub moved closer. It reached out one small paw and touched Sarah's hand. The gesture was so gentle, so hesitant. Sarah felt something break inside her chest. She had been on this station for 3 years. She worked long hours. She ate alone. She slept alone. She hadn't touched another living being with kindness in longer than she could remember. And now this tiny creature, this baby from a species she'd never met, was reaching out to her. Sarah made a decision. She would return the cub. Of course she would, but not yet. Not while it was still scared. Not while it was hurt. She picked up her pillow and placed it on the floor. The cub watched her carefully. Sarah patted the pillow. "You can rest here." Just for a little while, the cub tilted its head. Then it moved forward. It climbed onto the pillow, circled once, and curled into a small ball. Its 6 legs tucked neatly beneath its body. Its tail wrapped around itself. It looked up at Sarah one more time. Then its eyes slowly closed. Sarah sat on the floor next to the pillow. She should really call security. Any minute now. Just a few more minutes, the cub's breathing deepened. A soft sound came from its throat, almost like purring. Sarah reached out and very gently touched the soft fur on its head. The cub pressed into her hand, seeking more contact. Tears surprised Sarah. They ran down her cheeks before she could stop them. She didn't know why she was crying. Maybe because something had trusted her. Maybe because something needed her. Maybe because for the first time in years she didn't feel completely alone. Her communicator buzzed again. More messages. The search was intensifying. Security was scanning every section of the station. They would find the cub eventually. Sarah knew that. She couldn't hide it forever. Didn't want to hide it forever. The parents deserved to have their child back. But for now, for just this moment, Sarah sat on the cold floor of her quarters. She stroked the soft fur of a sleeping alien cub, and she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. She felt needed. The cub sighed in its sleep. Its small body relaxed completely. One paw reached out and rested on Sarah's leg. Outside her door, boots echoed in the corridor. Security teams were getting closer. Sarah would have to make the call soon, but not yet. Just a few more minutes. The cub needed to rest, and somehow Sarah needed this too. She looked down at the small creature curled beside her pillow. Avrilnarikub, one of the galaxy's most feared predators, sleeping peacefully, trusting completely. Tomorrow the galaxy would have questions. Tomorrow there would be consequences, but tonight a scared child had found safety, and Sarah had found purpose. Ambassador Krelnax moved through the corridors of Kepler-7 like a storm. Each of their forearms gestured wildly as they barked orders into communicators. Their silver-gray fur bristled with fear and rage. Other species scrambled out of their way. Their child was missing. Their precious Zilara was somewhere on this massive station, alone and afraid. Station Commander Williams stood in the security center, watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Every available officer was searching. Every sensor was active, but the station was enormous with thousands of rooms and miles of corridors. Focus the search on the lower commercial levels, Williams ordered. Juveniles seek enclosed spaces when frightened. Commander, a security officer called out. We have a problem. The Vrilnari cub's last known location was near Section 7. That's the human residential area. The security center went quiet. Everyone turned to look at Williams. Williams felt ice form in his stomach. Evacuate Section 7 now. Ambassador Krelnax heard the order over their communicator. They stopped moving. Their forearms fell to their sides. No, they whispered. Then louder. No. My child, they ran. Other species pressed themselves against the walls as the large Vrilnari thundered past. Krelnax's mind filled with horrible images. Humans were predators. Everyone knew this. They came from a death world. They ate other animals. They had evolved as hunters, and their baby had wandered into human territory. Krelnax burst into Section 7 just as the evacuation was finishing. The last few human residents were being ushered out by security. They looked confused and annoyed. What's happening? One human man asked. I was sleeping. Vrilnari juvenile loose in this section, a security officer explained. Potentially dangerous situation. The human man snorted. That little thing? I saw it earlier. It was crying near the air vents. Poor baby. Krelnax grabbed the human by his shirt. You saw Zilara? Where? The man pointed down the corridor. Ran that way. Into the vents. Thought someone would come looking. Krelnax released the human and ran. Behind them, Commander Williams and a full security team followed. They were armed with stun weapons. Just in case, the ambassador stopped at a junction. 3 corridors branched off in different directions. Which way? Which way had their child gone? A human woman stepped out of one corridor. She was small, wearing work coveralls stained with grease. She looked tired. Security immediately moved between her and Krelnax. "Ma'am, you need to evacuate this section." Sarah Chen looked at the security officers, then at the massive Vrelnari standing behind them. The alien's face showed such desperate fear that Sarah's heart twisted. She knew that look. She had seen it in the mirror every time her mother had been sick. Every time someone she loved was in danger. This wasn't a dangerous predator. This was a terrified parent. "Your child is safe," Sarah said quietly. Everyone froze. Krelnax pushed past the security officers. They towered over Sarah, all 4 arms reaching toward her. "You have seen Zilara. Where is my child?" Sarah didn't flinch. She pointed to her door. "In there, sleeping. You took my child?" Krelnax's voice rose to a roar. The translator couldn't quite capture the rage and fear in their tone. "She came to me," Sarah said. "She was hurt. I fixed her wound. She needed rest." Commander Williams stepped forward. "Miss Chen, you were ordered to report any sightings immediately." "I know," Sarah said. She didn't look away from Krelnax. But she was scared. She needed to feel safe first. Krelnax made a sound that the translator didn't even attempt to convert. They pushed past Sarah and slammed their hand on the door panel. The door slid open. Inside the small room, on a pillow on the floor, Zilara slept. The small cub was curled in a tight ball. One paw rested on the pillow like a child hugging a stuffed toy. A tiny bandage was wrapped around her middle. Krelnax stood in the doorway. Their forearms trembled. Their breath came in short gasps. Sarah stepped up beside the ambassador. "She's okay. I promise. You are human," Krelnax said slowly. "A predator species." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "My child should be terrified of you. The scent of predators causes panic in our young. It is instinct." Sarah didn't know what to say to that. The cub had been scared when she first arrived. But not of Sarah, of being alone and hurt. Krelnax walked slowly into the room. They knelt beside the pillow. One hand reached out and gently touched their child's fur. Zilara's eyes opened. She saw her parent and made a happy chirping sound. But she didn't move from the pillow. Instead, she looked around, looking for Sarah. The human woman knelt on the other side of the pillow. Zilara saw her and chirped again. The cub stretched, yawned, and stood. She wobbled on her 6 legs, still sleepy. Then Zilara did something that made everyone in the room stop breathing. She walked to Sarah first. Not to her parent. To the human. The cub pressed her small body against Sarah's leg and purred. Her tail wrapped around Sarah's arm. "Zilara," Krelnax said softly. "Come to parent." Zilara looked at Krelnax, then back at Sarah. The cub's meaning was clear. She wanted both. Sarah picked up the small creature carefully. Zilara curled against her chest, still purring. Sarah stood and walked to Krelnax. She held out the cub. "She loves you," Sarah said. She just needed a safe place to rest. Krelnax took their child in their 4 arms. They held Zilara close, breathing in her scent. Tears fell from the ambassador's eyes, which surprised Sarah. She hadn't known Vrelnari could cry, but Zilara squirmed. She chirped unhappily. She reached back toward Sarah with her small paws. "Be still, Zilara," Krelnax said. "We are going home." The cub's chirps turned to cries. She struggled in her parents' arms, reaching desperately for Sarah. Sarah stepped back. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset her. I just wanted to help." Commander Williams was recording everything. The other security officers stood in the doorway, watching with wide eyes. Krelnax looked at their child. Then at Sarah. Then back at Zilara, who was now crying in earnest. "This should not be possible," the ambassador said. "You are human. Your species hunts. Your people eat meat. Your world is classified as highly dangerous. My child's instincts should tell her to fear you." Sarah shrugged helplessly. "I don't know what to tell you. She came to me. She trusted me. I took care of her. But why?" Krelnax demanded. "Why would you risk the trouble? You could have called security immediately. You should have reported this." Sarah looked at the crying cub, then up at the massive Vrelnari ambassador. "Because she was scared, and she was hurt. and she was just a baby who needed help. The room was silent except for Zalara's cries. Krelnak studied Sarah's face for a long moment. "You have children of your own?" "No," Sarah said. "Family. Far away. On Earth, yet you cared for a stranger's child. An alien child. A child of a species you had never met." Sarah felt uncomfortable under so many staring eyes. "Wouldn't you? If you found a scared kid?" Krelnax didn't answer. They looked down at Zilara, who had exhausted herself crying and now hiccuped miserably against their chest. Commander Williams cleared his throat. "Ambassador, we should get the juvenile to medical. Have her checked properly." "Yes," Krelnax agreed. But they didn't move. They were still staring at Sarah with an expression the human couldn't read. "May I ask something, human Sarah Chen?" "Sure. How did you know my child would not harm you?" "Vrelnari juveniles have claws, teeth, strength beyond what you would expect." Sarah smiled slightly. She was scared and hurt. "Scared, hurt things don't attack unless cornered." "I didn't corner her. I helped her. That simple?" "That simple." Krelnax made a decision. "I wish to speak with you again, Sarah Chen, after Zilara is examined and safe." "Okay," Sarah said. The ambassador carried their still hiccuping child toward the door. As they passed Sarah, Zilara reached out one small paw. She touched Sarah's hand briefly. Then she was gone. Sarah stood alone in her quarters. The pillow still lay on the floor, a small depression showing where the cub had slept. Commander Williams stepped inside. "You're in serious trouble, Chen." "I know. You violated about 6 different regulations, I know," Williams sighed. "But that's not what's going to cause problems. The problem is what happens next." Sarah looked at him. "What do you mean?" "That cub chose you. A Vrelnari juvenile chose a human over its own parent. That shouldn't happen. That can't happen. But it did. So now everyone's going to want to know why." The meeting room was too small for everyone trying to fit inside. Representatives from 12 different species crowded around the table. More watched through video screens mounted on the walls. Everyone wanted to hear about the human and the Vrelnari cub. Sarah sat in a chair that felt too big. She wore her cleanest work coveralls, which still had a grease stain on one knee. Commander Williams sat beside her. Across the table, Ambassador Krelnax held Zilara, who had refused to be left with a caretaker. The cub kept staring at Sarah with those big eyes. A Thendorian scientist. Dr. Vexler stood at the head of the table. Their blue scales reflected the lights as they moved. "This meeting is to discuss the incident involving human Sarah Chen and the Vrelnari juvenile Zilara. However, after beginning our investigation, we have discovered something unexpected." Dr. Vexlar activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the table. Sarah leaned forward, confused. The first image showed a human man sitting on a bench. 3 small aliens surrounded him. One species had tentacles, another had wings, and the third looked like a walking plant. All 3 were clearly children. The human was reading to them from a datapad. "This is engineer Marcus Webb," Dr. Vexlar explained. 2 weeks ago, he reported 3 juvenile aliens in his quarters. He claims they followed him home. He has been caring for them since. Their parents approved because the children refused to leave. The next image showed a human woman in a garden. She was surrounded by alien children of various species. They were all helping her plant seeds. Botanist Dr. Yuki Tanaka. 5 juveniles are currently living in her quarters. She requested permission to expand her living space to accommodate them all. More images appeared. More humans. More alien children. Sarah's mouth fell open. "I don't understand. This is happening everywhere?" "On this station alone, we have documented 17 cases of human crew members caring for alien juveniles. On other stations, the numbers are similar. We only noticed the pattern after your incident because someone finally thought to check." A Korthan delegate, all 4 of their eyes narrowed with suspicion, spoke up. "This cannot be coincidence. The humans are using some kind of technology, some kind of manipulation." "We tested for that," Dr. Vexelar said calmly. "No technology, no drugs. No pheromone manipulation. We scanned human Sarah Chen completely. She is exactly what she appears to be, just a human." "Then explain it," the Korthan demanded. "Why do our children seek out these predators?" Sarah felt anger rise in her chest. "We're not predators. Not like you mean. You eat meat, you hunt. Your planet is classified as a death world with hundreds of species that could kill most galactic citizens. So, Sarah shot back. That doesn't mean we hurt children. Any children? Ambassador Krelnak shifted in their seat. Zilara chirped softly, still watching Sarah. I have been researching human behavior since yesterday. What I found is disturbing. Everyone turned to the Vrelnari. Krelnax continued. Humans form emotional bonds with anything. Other humans, yes. But also animals. Plants, rocks, machines. They adopt creatures from their own world that should be their prey or their predators. They have taken wolves and made them into companions. They keep reptiles as pets. They talk to their plants. A few species made sounds of disbelief. More than this, Krelnak said. Humans respond to what they call cuteness. Large eyes, small bodies, certain sounds. These traits trigger a protective response in humans, a need to care for and protect. Dr. Vexelar nodded. This matches our findings. Human evolution on a dangerous world created what we call hyperactive empathy. They had to cooperate to survive. They had to care for their young longer than most species. This created instincts that extend beyond their own species. But that doesn't explain why the juveniles seek them out, another delegate said. Actually, it does, Dr. Vexelar replied. We studied the interaction between human Sarah Chen and juvenile Zilara. We measured stress hormones, body language, vocal patterns. The human unconsciously displayed every signal that says parent and protector. Relaxed posture, soft voice, gentle touch, no threat display. The juvenile's instincts recognize safety. Sarah spoke up. I just treated her like I would any scared kid. That's it. Exactly, Dr. Vexelar said. You defaulted to caretaking behavior. Not aggression. Not indifference, care. This is apparently normal for your species. Of course it's normal, Sarah said, confused. What else would I do? The room went quiet. Other species looked at each other. Finally, a Pelian delegate with soft fur and large ears spoke. Most species do not care for young that are not their own. It wastes resources, creates competition. Evolution discourages it. That's horrible, Sarah said without thinking. That is survival, the Pelian replied. Or it was before civilization. But the instinct remains. We can choose to care for others young, but it is a choice. For you, it seems to be automatic. Commander Williams leaned back in his chair. He had been quiet until now. Are you saying humans are different from every other species in the galaxy? Not every species, Dr. Vexelar corrected. There are a few others with strong caretaking instincts. But humans are the only known species that extends those instincts so broadly. You do not just care for human children. You care for anything small and helpless. We've been calling it the pack bonding instinct, another scientist added. Humans form packs, groups, families, and they extend family bonds to almost anything. Sarah thought about her childhood. The stray dogs she had brought home. The birds with broken wings. The neighbor's cat that hated everyone except her. Her mother had always joked that Sarah collected broken things. So what does this mean? She asked. The Corthan delegate stood abruptly. It means humans are dangerous. More dangerous than we thought. They infiltrate through compassion. They make us trust them. They steal our children's loyalty. We don't steal anything. Sarah stood too, angry now. Your kids come to us because we're nice to them. Because we care. That's not manipulation, that's just being decent. You admit it then. You deliberately make our young bond with you. I didn't deliberately do anything. I found a hurt, scared child and I helped. That's it. Zilara chose that moment to chirp loudly. The cub squirmed in Krelnax's arms, reaching for Sarah. The ambassador held their child tighter, but Zilara began to cry. Sarah's anger melted instantly. She looked at the crying cub and felt her heart break. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset her. You see? The Corthan said triumphantly. The human shows concern for the juvenile even now. It is manipulative behavior designed to appear caring. Ambassador Krelnak stood, holding their still crying child. No, I do not believe this is manipulation. I have watched human Sarah Chen carefully. She gains nothing from my child's affection. She asks for nothing. She expects nothing. She simply cares. Why? The Corthan demanded. Why would she care for a species she has never met? For a child that is not her own? There must be a reason. Some advantage. Sarah looked at all the faces staring at her, some suspicious, some curious, some confused. She thought about the question. Why did she care? Because Zilara needed help, Sarah said finally. That's the only reason. She was small and scared and hurt. How could I not help? But you are not responsible for her, the Pelion said gently. Her survival is not necessary for your survival. I don't care about survival. Sarah's voice rose. I care about what's right. You don't leave children alone when they're scared. You don't ignore someone who needs help. That's not about survival, that's about being a good person. The room was silent. Dr. Vexelar made a note on their datapad. This is consistent with what we've observed in other humans. They have a strong moral framework that prioritizes care over practical gain. It's a weakness, the Corthan muttered. Is it? Commander Williams spoke up. Humans have been part of the galactic community for 20 years. In that time, have we started wars? Stolen resources? Harmed innocents? No, the Corthan admitted reluctantly. We build. We explore. We help. We fix things. Williams gestured to Sarah. That's what we do. Chen here is a maintenance engineer. She fixes broken things. That's literally her job. So when she found a broken, scared child, she did what humans do. She fixed it. Ambassador Krelnak sat down slowly, still holding Zilara. The cub had stopped crying and was listening to the voices around her. I do not fear human Sarah Chen. I trust her with my child's life. She proved that trust was not misplaced. One human, the Corthan said. What about the rest? Dr. Vexlar projected another image. This one showed statistics, numbers and graphs. We have been reviewing every human interaction with alien juveniles for the past decade. Not a single incident of harm, not one. Humans in positions of childcare have perfect safety records, better than most species, including our own. This is unprecedented, a delegate from the back of the room said. Yes, Dr. Vexlar agreed, which is why the Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They want to discuss what role humans should play in our society going forward. Sarah felt cold. What does that mean? It means, Dr. Vexelar said, everything is about to change. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Sarah had ever seen. It stretched upward like a cathedral, with balconies circling higher and higher until they disappeared into shadows. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the seats. The noise of their conversations echoed like thunder. Sarah stood on a platform in the center. A single spotlight illuminated her. She felt very small. Commander Williams stood beside her along with Ambassador Krelnax. Zilara was not present. The council had insisted the cub remain in protective care during the session. According to Williams, Zilara had cried for 3 hours straight when separated from both her parent and Sarah. That fact was now part of the official record. High Counselor Thex Mara called the session to order. The counselor was a Zenthari, tall and crystalline, their body refracting light into rainbow patterns. Their voice resonated through the chamber without electronic assistance. This emergency session concerns the matter of human integration into galactic society. Specifically, the unexpected interaction patterns between humans and juveniles of other species. Human Sarah Chen will answer questions first. Then we will hear proposals. Sarah's mouth was dry. She had fixed coolant pipes and repaired air filters. She was not prepared to address the galactic government. A Corthan counselor stood immediately. Human Sarah Chen, you are a maintenance worker with no political power or authority, yet your actions have forced this council to convene. Did you intend to create an interstellar incident? No, Sarah said. Her voice shook slightly. I just helped a scared kid. A kid that was not your species. Not your responsibility. Why? Sarah had answered this question so many times now. Because she needed help. That is not an answer. That is an evasion. Sarah felt her temper rise. It's the only answer I have. What do you want me to say? That I had some secret plan? I didn't. I found a hurt, crying child in my quarters and I helped her. That's it. The Corthan leaned forward. You expect us to believe you acted without thought? Without considering consequences? Yes. Because when someone needs help, you don't stand around thinking about consequences. You help them. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some sounded approving. Others sounded disturbed. Another counselor stood. This one was Pelion with soft gray fur. Let me ask differently. Sarah Chen, if you found a human child in the same situation, would you have acted the same way? Of course. And if you found a Pelion child? Yes. A Corthan child? A Zenthari child? Any species? Yes, all of them. Any child. The Pelion counselor looked around the chamber. This is what we face. Humans do not discriminate in their caretaking. They extend protection to all juveniles equally. That's not natural, someone shouted from the upper balconies. No, the Pelion agreed. It is not natural for most species, but it appears to be natural for humans. High Counselor Thexamara spoke again. Dr. Vexelar, present your findings. The Thendorian scientist appeared on a large holographic screen. They looked tired. We have completed a comprehensive study of human psychology and behavior. Our findings are clear. Humans possess what we are calling universal caretaking instinct. They respond to distress signals from juveniles regardless of species. They automatically display protective behaviors. They form emotional bonds rapidly and strongly. Why? Someone asked. Evolution. Human young are vulnerable for years, much longer than most species. This created pressure for strong caretaking instincts. Additionally, humans evolved in cooperative groups. They succeeded through teamwork and mutual care. These instincts became part of their basic psychology. A military counselor from the Draxan Empire stood. He was covered in dark scales and his voice was harsh. This makes them dangerous. Imagine if humans decided to take control. They could use children as hostages, as leverage, as weapons. Sarah's anger exploded. We would never do that. You say that now, but you admit you form bonds with juveniles automatically. What happens when those bonds conflict with your own species' interests? Ambassador Krelnak stepped forward. May I speak? High Counselor Thexamara nodded. My child Zalara is alive and healthy because of human Sarah Chen. She could have ignored my child. She could have reported her immediately and let security handle it. She could have harmed Zalara while she was vulnerable. She did none of these things. She cared for Zalara as if she were human, as if she were family. Krelnax paused, their forearms gesturing emotionally. I am Vrelnari. My species is known for our strength and our territorial nature. We do not trust easily. We do not accept outsiders into our family units. But I trust human Sarah Chen. I would trust her with my child's life again without hesitation. 1. Example. The Draxan military counselor growled. Then, explain the other 17 cases on Kepler 7. Alone, Krelnax challenged. Explain the hundreds of cases we have found across every station and colony where humans live. Explain the fact that not one single human has ever harmed a juvenile in their care. Not once in 20 years. They're waiting, the Draxan insisted, building trust. Waiting for the right moment. To do what? Krelnax demanded. What would they gain? They ask for nothing. They expect nothing. They simply care for our young when our young seek them out. A new voice spoke from a high balcony. It was old and wheezing. Sarah couldn't see the speaker clearly. Perhaps that is the problem. Perhaps our young seek them out too easily. What do you mean? High Counselor Thexamara asked. Humans make our children trust them. This could be used to infiltrate our societies, to gain access to sensitive areas, to gather intelligence, all through the innocent action of caring for our young. Commander Williams had been quiet until now. He stepped forward. With respect, Counselor, if humanity wanted to infiltrate your societies, we have had 20 years to do it. We haven't. We've been invited to every major station and colony. We've been given access to your technology, your culture, your knowledge. We haven't betrayed that trust. Yet, the old voice said. When is enough? Williams demanded.
How many years must pass?
How many good actions must we take before you trust us? Trust must be earned. We've been earning it for 2 decades. The chamber erupted into arguments. Some species defending humans, others demanding restrictions. The noise grew overwhelming. High Counselor Thexamara raised their crystalline arms. Light pulsed from their body, commanding attention. Silence fell. We must vote on proposals. 3 have been submitted. First, the Corthan proposal to restrict human contact with all alien juveniles. Humans would be prohibited from working in childcare, education, or any field involving minors. Sarah felt sick. That would change everything. Humans would be isolated, treated as threats. Second, the Pelion proposal to expand human presence in diplomatic and educational roles, to utilize their unique abilities for peacemaking and cultural exchange. That sounded better, but Sarah wondered what it would mean in practice. Third, the Draxan proposal to place humans under observation. All human interactions with juveniles would be monitored and recorded. Restrictions would be placed on where humans could live and work. That was worse than the first option. That was treating humans like criminals. We will debate each proposal. Sarah Chen, you will remain for questions. The next 6 hours were brutal. Sarah answered the same questions over and over. She explained her actions again and again. She defended humanity's character while knowing nothing she said would matter. The decision would be political. It would be about power and fear, not about truth. During a brief recess, Sarah sat in a small waiting room. She put her head in her hands. Ambassador Krelnak sat beside her. "You are tired." "I'm scared," Sarah admitted. "What if they vote to restrict us? What if they treat us like threats?" "Then they are fools." Sarah looked up. Krelnak's face showed determination. "My people have a saying," the ambassador continued. "The strength of the pack protects the cub. The strength of the cub protects the pack. You protected my cub when you had no reason to. This means you are part of our pack now, and we protect our pack. I'm not Vrelnari. No, but you have the heart of one." Sarah smiled weakly. "Thanks," Krelnak stood. "When the vote comes, I will speak again. Others will too." "You are not alone, Sarah Chen." The recess ended. Everyone returned to the chamber. High Counselor Thexmara called for final statements before the vote. A young counselor stood. Sarah didn't recognize the species. They were small with iridescent scales. "I wish to speak. Proceed. I was one of the children who sought out a human. 10 years ago when I was young, I was lost on a station, separated from my spawning group. I was terrified. A human found me. A human carried me. A human spoke soft words I didn't understand but knew were kind. A human kept me safe until my spawning group found me." The chamber was silent. "That human asked for nothing, expected nothing, simply cared. I did not understand at the time. I was too young, but now I understand. That human saw a scared child and responded with kindness. This is what humans do. This is what they are." The young counselor looked directly at Sarah. "I am alive because a human cared. I am a counselor because I learned from that experience that species boundaries matter less than compassion. If we vote to restrict humans, we are voting to restrict kindness. I will not do that." Other counselors began to speak. More stories. More experiences. Not all positive. Some species still feared, still doubted. But slowly Sarah began to see the tide turning. When the vote finally came, Sarah stood in her quarters, packing her few belongings into a storage container. The room felt empty now. Strange how a space could feel different just because you knew you were leaving. The vote had been close. The Corthan proposal to restrict human contact had failed. The Draxan proposal for surveillance had also failed. The Pelian proposal to expand human presence in diplomatic and educational roles had passed by a narrow margin. Sarah. Chen was no longer a maintenance engineer on Kepler-7. She was now the first Director of Juvenile Affairs for the Galactic Council. She had no idea what that actually meant. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Ambassador Krelnak entered carrying Zalara. The cub saw Sarah and immediately began squirming and chirping excitedly. "She has been asking for you," Krelnak said. In her way, Sarah smiled and held out her arms. Krelnak hesitated for just a moment, then handed over their child. Zalara immediately curled against Sarah's chest, purring loudly. "I have come to discuss an arrangement," Krelnak said formally. Sarah sat on her bed, gently stroking Zalara's fur. "What kind of arrangement?" "Zalara has bonded with you." "This is clear. Separating her now would cause distress. For her, and I admit for me as well." Krelnak's voice softened. "She asks for you every day. She cries when you are not near. This is not healthy for her development." Sarah felt her heart sink. "Are you asking me to stay away from her?" "I will if that's what's best." "No." Krelnak sat beside Sarah, their large frame making the bed creak. "I am asking you to be part of her life, permanently." "I don't understand. In Vrelnari culture, when a child bonds with someone outside the spawning group, that person becomes packkin, family, not by blood but by choice and action. You saved Zalara. You cared for her. She has chosen you. Therefore I choose you." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. "You want me to be part of your family?" "Yes, we would share raising Zalara. She would learn from both of us. From you, she would learn compassion and care. From me, she would learn strength and tradition. She needs both." Zalara chirped softly as if agreeing. "I would be honored," Sarah whispered. Krelnak placed one large hand on Sarah's shoulder. You have given my child something precious, safety, trust, love. I cannot repay this, but I can share her with you. Another chime at the door. Commander Williams entered, followed by Dr. Vexillar and several other humans Sarah recognized from the station. Sorry to interrupt, Williams said, but we need to discuss your new position. Sarah carefully stood, still holding Zilara. I don't even know what my new position is. Director of Juvenile Affairs. What does that mean? Dr. Vexillar activated a datapad. It means you will oversee all interactions between species juveniles and human caretakers across the galaxy. You will establish protocols, set standards, train other humans for similar roles. I'm a maintenance engineer. I fix coolant pipes. I'm not qualified for this. You're the most qualified person we have, Williams countered. You did what no one expected. You proved that species boundaries don't matter when it comes to caring for children. That's exactly what this position needs. One of the other humans stepped forward. Sarah recognized her as Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the botanist who had 5 alien children living in her quarters. We're with you, Sarah, all of us. Every human who's been caring for alien kids. We want to help. There are hundreds of us now, another human added, across dozens of stations. We've been doing this informally. Now we can do it properly. With support. With resources, Sarah felt overwhelmed. I don't know if I can do this. Zilara looked up at Sarah and made a soft sound. The cub reached up one small paw and touched Sarah's cheek. The gesture was so gentle, so trusting. Sarah thought about all the other children out there, lost, scared, needing help. She thought about humans scattered across the galaxy, naturally drawn to care for these children, but doing it alone, without support, without recognition. She thought about what one person could do with kindness, and what many people could do together. Okay, Sarah said, I'll do it. But I need help. I need all of you. You have it, Williams promised. Over the next weeks, Sarah's life transformed. Her new office was on the Galactic Council Station, a massive structure that orbited no planet. Her staff consisted of both humans and aliens who believed in the mission. Her first official act was to establish the Juvenile Care Network, a system connecting human caretakers with families who needed help, not replacing parents, supporting them. Her second act was to create training programs, teaching humans about different species needs, teaching aliens about human caretaking instincts. Her third act was to visit every major station and colony, meeting with the humans who had been caring for alien children in secret, bringing them into the light, giving them official status. Sarah discovered something unexpected. She was good at this work, not because she was a diplomat or politician, but because she understood the simple truth. Children needed care. Species didn't matter. Politics didn't matter. What mattered was making sure no child felt alone or scared. 6 months after finding Zilara in her quarters, Sarah stood in her new quarters on the council station. They were much larger than her old room on Kepler 7. They needed to be. 12 children slept in the specially designed room. Each had their own sleeping area suited to their species' needs. Zilara was there, of course, now bigger and learning to speak in both Vrelnari and human languages. But there were others too. A Pelian cub who had been abandoned, a Korthan juvenile whose family died in an accident, a Zenthari crystal child who was too sick to return home, 3 human children from Earth who wanted to experience life on the station, others who came and went as their families needed help. Sarah called it the Haven. Officially, it was the Juvenile Care Demonstration Facility, a place to show how multi-species childcare could work. Really, it was just a home. Ambassador Krelnax visited every day. They had become close friends. Zilara called them both by parental terms in their respective languages. The arrangement worked perfectly. Tonight, Sarah walked through the Haven, checking on each sleeping child. She tucked in blankets, adjusted temperature controls, whispered soft words. When she reached Zilara's area, she found the cub awake. Zilara was much bigger now, nearly the size of a large dog, but she still curled up like she had that first night. Can't sleep? Sarah asked softly. Thinking, Zilara said in careful human words. She was learning quickly about what? Why you helped me, when I was small and scared. Sarah sat beside Zilara, running her hand through the soft fur. Because you needed help. But I was stranger. Not human. Didn't matter. Why not? Sarah thought about how to explain. Because being human means caring for others. All others. It's who we are. Other species not like this? Some are, but humans are very good at it. Zilara was quiet for a moment. I am glad you are human. I am glad you found me. Me too, little one. Not so little anymore. Sarah laughed softly. No, you're growing up. Soon you'll be as big as your parent. Will you still care for me? Always, that's what family does. Zilara purred and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Sarah stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, other humans were caring for alien children. Other families were coming together across species lines. Other beings were learning that compassion had no boundaries, all because one scared cub had crept into a human's quarters and curled beside her pillow. Sarah had thought she was alone. Just a maintenance worker fixing broken things on a distant station. She had been wrong. She had never been alone. She had been waiting to find purpose, waiting to find family, waiting to discover that one small act of kindness could change everything. Behind her, a Pelian cub made a small sound in their sleep. Sarah turned and went to check on them. They had kicked off their blanket. She tucked it back around them gently. The cub sighed and settled deeper into sleep. Sarah smiled. This was her life now. Not fixing coolant pipes, not repairing air filters, but fixing something more important. Making sure no child, no matter what species, ever felt unwanted or alone. It was exhausting work. It was complicated work. It was political and difficult and sometimes frustrating. It was perfect. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Sarah checked her datapad. It was from Commander Williams. 3 more stations requesting human caretakers. Can you assign someone? Sarah typed back. Send me the details. We'll find someone. More messages appeared. More requests. More children needing care. More families needing support. Sarah worked through them all, matching needs with resources, connecting people who could help each other. The Haven was just the beginning. Just one example of what was possible. Across the galaxy, in stations and colonies and ships, humans were doing what they did best. They were caring. They were bonding. They were making family out of strangers, not through force, not through manipulation, through simple, genuine compassion. The galaxy had feared humans might be dangerous. They were right to be cautious. But they had misunderstood the danger. Humans weren't dangerous because they were predators. Humans were dangerous because they made you care. They made you want to be better. They made you realize that maybe the old ways of thinking about species and boundaries were wrong. They made you believe that family could be chosen,